Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. A while back we did something a little different. We did the 2015 NHL redrafting, and it gave me the idea to keep going a little further because my knowledge spans more than 2015. To be fair, I did want to do it because I knew the Bruins had 3 picks right around the same time, so it's always fun to see those scenarios. But today we're doing the 2016 NHL redraft, and boy was this interesting. There are a lot of big picks, there are a lot of smaller picks. I only went through the first 20 picks of the draft, seeing as my information that I had from my own knowledge base was a bit spotty towards the end. However, that does not mean the top end talent is not there, and it does not mean that around 17, 18, and 19 that it fell off. So, this time, I don't remember the order I went in last time, but I will be doing number 20 to number 1. But before we get to that, I want to spend some time with the Vegas Golden Knights jersey. And as you know, this is my number 29, 29, Marc-Andre Fleury, the Flower, as we call him in Pittsburgh, and in Minnesota, and in Vegas, and in Chicago, and all the other teams. He's widely known as Flower as his nickname. Should be quite interesting hearing some of these sounds. Seeing as there's a whole new mic setup, but let's get into the notable dropouts. First up, we have the 5th overall pick, originally selected by Vancouver, Olli Juolevi. I just could not justify putting him on the list. He did not spend a whole lot of time in the NHL. I always get him mixed up with Olli Jokinen, but it's because of the Olli, to be fair. And also the 4th overall pick, Jesse Puljujärvi. Jesse Puljujärvi. Now, I really wanted him to be on this list. I really tried to keep extending the list until I could put him on, but I just realized that he's not the player that any of us wanted him to be. I believe he's playing pretty well over in Europe right now, or in the SHL. Wherever he's playing, I believe I've heard good things from there. But let's move on to the honorable mentions, the people that just missed out. A few of these people are actually currently in the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs, and so having them in the honorable mentions might be kicking a deceased horse, but we've got Jake Bean of the Carolina Hurricanes, Joseph Woll, who I just could not, even as a Toronto fan, I couldn't justify putting him on the list. He does not have enough of a resume built that I can confidently do that. Next we have Victor Mete, who's currently on the Philadelphia Flyers. We have Vincent Desharnais, or Vinny Desharnais, as pretty much everybody calls him. He is currently on the Edmonton Oilers roster. Sam Steele. If I said there was 2 players, I just meant one. I think I was thinking that Dallas made it instead of Edmonton. but it's Edmonton versus Florida. And Sam Steele is on Dallas. There's the goaltender Connor Ingram, who played on the formerly known Arizona Coyotes. Now it is going to be the Utah Hockey Club, somewhere in there. For this video, we're going to refer to them as the Utah Yeti. It's the name everybody loves. If that ends up not being their name, you still get what I'm saying. Salt Lake City team. And finally, we have Michael Eyssimont from Tampa Bay. That is our honorable mentions, and getting into a player that I know there's going to be a ton of controversy around this, and I'm going to start by saying, well, the fact that I have to say that there's going to be a ton of controversy and everything, and I have to start by saying anything, but it is Pierre-Luc Dubois, originally taken number 3 by Columbus. And if you're wondering what I'm looking down at, I'm looking down at my notes. So there's a lot that I took notes of, so just hang with me here. There's a lot of information. I wanted to get you guys pretty much all of the information I possibly could on a player. So, the reason Pierre-Luc Dubois fell so far is a personal bias. I have not been a fan of him. I think it's really bad, and I'm usually trying to be the most positive, but this player has forced his way off of two different teams, and he is now on his third team, which he, as an $8.5 million player, put up a whopping total of 16 goals, 24 assists for 40 points, making 8.5. At times he was on the Los Angeles Kings' fourth line as an $8.5 million player. And I believe the place he wants to play is Montreal, and because he's not getting his way, he's forcing his way out of this and that and this and that, but now he's locked up with term until 2030, until this 2030-31 season. Now, I want to go into a little bit more. This pick was via the Rangers at number 20. It was the Detroit Red Wings pick in the actual draft, and originally Detroit selected Dennis Cholowiecki. I think it's important to hear who was taken at the spots. So that is who originally was. I'm pretty sure up until recently, if not still, I believe Cholowiecki is on the team. Now, this one was a personal choice. Lack of loyalty was stated here on his new contract. Alright, he's been a part of two separate trades. Trade number 1. Winnipeg receives Pierre-Luc Dubois and a 2022 third-round pick, which turned out to be the number 77 pick, David Zhilkin. Columbus receives Jack Roslovic and Patrick Laine, a player who will show up later on in this video, because I still believe in him. And in his second trade, Los Angeles receives Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Winnipeg receives Gabriel Vilardi, Alex Iafallo, Rasmus Kupari, and a 2024 second-round pick via Montreal, so that is the 37th pick in this year's draft. That was an absolute fleecing. That is what really made Winnipeg's season this year, was trading PLD for that big package. Pause. No, but honestly, props to Winnipeg. They had a great season. It didn't end the way they wanted it to, but hey, it doesn't always end that way. Now, in his career, PLD has played 516 games, had 145 goals, 197 assists, for 342 points. And here's the fun thing. I also have a potential lineup, or at least a potential line for each player in this list, or a potential pairing for the defenseman. So on the Detroit Red Wings, I had Pierre-Luc Dubois playing second line minutes. The line would be on the left, David Perron, in the middle, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and on the right, Patrick Kane. Next up, the New York Islanders originally drafted Kiefer Bellows at this spot. Now, Kiefer Bellows is making quite a name for himself in the Toronto Marlies system, and it would be nice to see him back in the NHL. I think he's showing a lot of promise in the A, and I think he can really get through that barrier. Now, in a place like Toronto, that's a lot harder because they've got cap restrictions, and they've got a lot of good talent already on the roster, so it would have to be a pretty substantial move to end up having Kiefer Bellows be a full-time NHLer. But I do have at this spot a forward, Tyson Jost, originally drafted 10th overall by the Colorado Avalanche. Tyson Jost, as of this recording, is a Buffalo Sabre. He's aged at 26 and his contract ends this season, and he will be an unrestricted free agent, meaning all the power goes to him of where he resigns, and because he's been up and down in the lineup between Rochester and Buffalo, I really am not 100% sure if he will stick with the Sabres organization. But it has been nice to have him. Now, he is the perfect plug-and-play guy. He's a bottom six forward. He's top six AHL easily. But he's a grit and grindy like bottom six. He's gonna work hard. That's what you want out of your bottom six guys. I do think he was picked a bit high. 10th overall, top 10s are really supposed to be something special. And Tyson Jost is just kind of this fringe NHLer on a team that does have a lot of prospects and is an upcoming team. So maybe somewhere like, what's a bad team? San Jose. Maybe somewhere like San Jose he could find himself in third line minutes. That would just depend on if he wants to go to a bad team and just play more, or if he wants to go to a winning team and play less, but have a chance at the Stanley Cup. Now, he has carved out a nice NHL career with 456 games played, 57 goals, 83 assists for 140 points. And he has been involved in one trade so far. Minnesota Wild receive Tyson Jost, and the Colorado Avalanche receive Nico Sturm. His potential line on the New York Islanders would be fourth line with Simon Holmstrom, Tyson Jost in the middle, and Cal Clutterbuck. Number 18. Originally Winnipeg Jets pick via the Philadelphia Flyers, they originally picked Logan Stanley. And Logan Stanley seems to be a pretty good player. Honestly, I can't remember if he's even further in this video, but I do want to give him a little bit of props because he is a solid bottom to middle six guy. If I'm thinking of the right Logan Stanley, of course. But in this scenario, this redraft, I have Winnipeg selecting at number 18 forward Dylan Dubé, who was originally drafted 56th overall by the Calgary Flames. And currently, Dylan Dubé is still on the Calgary Flames. His contract expires this season, but he is a restricted free agent, which is good for Calgary because it's apparently really hard to keep players and convince players to come in right now. So good on them for having an RFA. Now, he has remained loyal to Calgary, which I admire. Now, as you can see with the Pierre-Luc Dubois thing, loyalty's kind of big for me, so Dylan Dubé was helped very marginally. He does have a solid career going, but he did just get the edge over some guys because of that loyalty. Some players can't help it, some players can. Tyson Jost left Colorado and signed with the Buffalo Sabres for the same reason as I think he might leave this time, is he wasn't going to get a lot of playing time. Now, Dylan Dubé was injured most of this season. He has been progressing in the past 2 seasons, going from 32 points in 21-22 to 45 points in 22-23. He's a top 9 forward, and in his career he's played 325 games, 57 goals, 70 assists, 127 points. Now, a potential line would be the third line of the Cal. I have goofed this up so hard. I do have a potential line for Calgary, and I believe he would be a third or fourth liner on Winnipeg. I don't know Winnipeg's roster like that, but for goofs, Dylan Dubé would be in the middle of Jonathan Huberdeau and Yegor Sharangovich. And I was moving people up and down this list, so I do apologize for that. But we move on to Nashville. Nashville had their own pick. They picked number 17. And in my world, in my redraft, they are drafting defenseman Ryan Lindgren. Ryan Lindgren, who was originally drafted 49th overall by the Boston Bruins. Now, Nashville's original pick was Dante Fabro, who early in his career looked really nice. You don't hear as much about Fabro anymore, but I digress. Ryan Lindgren's team currently is the New York Rangers. And they just had their top 4 appearance in the 2024, my tongue is so tied today, 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs, where they eventually lost to the Florida Panthers, who, as of this recording, are up 2-0 on the Edmonton Oilers. And it really does look like they're going to run away with it, but that's another video. Ryan is 26 years old. His contract expires this season, but he is an RFA, so that would be good for Nashville. He's a solid defenseman that's not known for his offense, but can supply some. Now, I've only put plus minus for a couple players, and it's really just when it's like a crazy number. So, this season, Ryan Lindgren was a plus 22, and in his career he is a plus 99. He's been involved in one trade. The Rangers received Matt Bolesky, Ryan Spooner, Ryan Lindgren, and a 2018 first-round pick, which became the 22nd pick, Jacob Bernard Docker, and a 7th-round pick, number 216, Massimo Rizzo. And Boston receives Rick Nash. Now, that must have been like win now mode Boston, because Rick Nash would have been on the older side around that trade time. But for Lindgren, his career stats are 333 games played, 10 goals, 70 assists, 80 points, and a plus 99. His potential line would be Ryan Lindgren and Luke Schenn. And if I remember correctly, that is the top 4. Alright, some of these players do have a lot more information on it. So, starting with Arizona Coyote via Detroit, number 16, they originally drafted Jakob Chychrun right here, but there's no way Jakob Chychrun was falling all the way to 16 on my list. No way. And once again, for clarity, this is Utah, because you will be hearing Arizona a couple times, and I really mean Utah. It's a new thing. The team doesn't have a name yet. But in my reality, the Arizona Coyotes at number 16 select Filip Gustavsson, who was originally drafted number 55th overall by the Pittsburgh Penguins. And currently Filip Gustavsson is on the Minnesota Wild, and he's age 25. He makes $3.75 million against the cap until 2025-2026. And we've kind of got glimpses of Gustavsson of he's really good, and glimpses where he's really bad. Now, Gustavsson has been involved in two trades. The first trade, Ottawa receives from Pittsburgh Ian Cole, Filip Gustavsson, a 2018 first-round pick, which became the number 22 overall pick, Keandre Miller, who's now a New York Ranger, and a 2019 third-round pick, who turned into Antonio Honda. In this trade, Pittsburgh receives from Ottawa Vince Dunn and a 2018 third-round pick, which became the 64th pick, Justus Annunen. Pittsburgh receives from Vegas Derek Brassard, 40% retained, and Tobias Lindberg. In the last team here, and I'll explain why this got complicated real quick, Vegas receives from Ottawa Derek Brassard, and Vegas receives from Pittsburgh Ryan Reeves and a 4th-round pick, who became the 99th pick of the draft, Stanislav Devin. Now you may be wondering, that's 3 teams. That is what we call a 3-team trade, and I tried to write it as simple as possible. It's really hard to do with 3-team trades, but basically what we got to where Filip Gustavsson made his way to Ottawa, and then I believe, we'll get to trade number 2, where Ottawa receives Cam Talbot and Minnesota receives Filip Gustavsson. So they basically swapped goalies. He's had a bit of a shaky year this year, I'm not gonna lie. His save percentage wasn't the best. Some goalies just had a down year this year. It seemed like a couple goalies really did not hit their mark. He has had overall success. Just looking into his stats, he should be a solid NHL starter, or at minimum, a tandem goalie. He does have a record of playing extremely well every other year, and this year was actually that down year. So if you want to go make a weird bet that he'll have over a .905 save percentage next year, or above league average save percentage next year, you might just hit on it. Maybe don't put a bunch of money. I'm not even here to give betting advice. I don't bet myself, but if I was a betting man, the patterns do make out for Filip Gustavsson. Now, Minnesota did have major cap issues, and I want to say that, just to tell you about the cap situation, they're at least minus $14 million from player buyouts this year. Next year and the year after and the year after, those are all better years. But this year was really bad because of buying out 2 players, Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. Now, I did right here, I'm curious to see what a less cap-strapped Minnesota team can do. In his career, he has 111 games played, which for a goalie, that's pretty good. He's a younger goalie too. 25 is not that old for a goalie. He has 52 wins in those games played. He has a 2.73 GAA goals against average and a 912 save percentage. And for his potential line, I have him as a starter in Arizona. Next up, we do have the Minnesota Wild, who originally picked 15th. And originally they picked Luke Kunin, who I believe now is on the San Jose Sharks, if I'm not mistaken. But in my world, at number 15, Minnesota Wild select defenseman Filip Hronek. Known top 2 defenseman Filip Hronek on Vancouver, who recently had a good little run in the 2024 playoffs. Now, Filip Hronek was originally drafted number 53 by the Detroit Red Wings. And he is currently on the Vancouver Canucks and is aged 26. His agent is Alan Walsh. If you've watched the Steve Dangle podcast, that is Agent Provocateur. And he is an RFA this season, which does help a little bit because it's a restricted free agent once again. However, he is a super solid right shot defenseman. That's huge in this league, and that's huge when it comes to negotiating. And he seems to be the perfect fit right next to Quinn Hughes, who's a major offensive defenseman. Now, Hronek has been involved in one trade in his career. Vancouver receives Filip Hronek in a 4th round pick, which became the number 105 overall pick in the 2023 draft, and it was Ty Mueller. Detroit receives 2023 1st round pick via the New York Islanders, which turned out to be the 17th pick overall, and that was Axel Sandin Palinka. Sandinista Palinka. And a 2023 2nd round pick, which was number 43, Felix Nielsen. In his career, Hronek has had 390 games played, 35 goals, 170 assists, and 205 points. In Minnesota, I have a potential lineup with a second pairing, Jonas Brodin and Filip Hronek. Intermission style break here. Build up the anticipation for the next pick. With the 14th overall selection, the Boston Bruins select Jordan Kyrou, who is a forward, and he was originally drafted number 35th. Oh, he was originally drafted 35th overall by St. Louis Blues. Now, the original pick here, and Bruins fans aren't going to be happy that they lost this guy in this redraft. Charlie McAvoy was originally chosen at number 14th overall. Kyrou is currently playing still for the St. Louis Blues, and he's aged 26. He makes $8.125 million against cap until 2030-31. He's remained loyal to St. Louis even after being booed earlier this season by his own fans. He was playing very poorly at the time, especially in the defensive zone. But because he wasn't getting it done on offense, his defensive woes were harder to overlook. He had like 8 goals through the first half of the season or something crazy like that. But he did end the season with a respectable 31 goals, 36 assists, 67 points. He is starting to show what he can do in the NHL in these past 3 seasons. It seems to be a solid player with consistent goal scoring prowess and a notch for 30 goals per season to this point. as everybody says, he needs to work on his defense. He needs to work on his defensive IQ. He's got to get in the video room and really take to heart defensive positioning. And basically, that extra work ethic to be seen not only as a sniper, but maybe he can be that two-way forward if he starts to give more effort on the defensive side. That's big expectations, but hey, I believe if you work hard at anything, you can achieve anything. In his career, Kyrou has 334 games played, 114 goals, 148 assists, 262 points. And his potential lineup in Boston would be Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle up the middle, and on the right side, Jordan Kyrou. Now, Carolina Hurricanes select number 13, Jakob Chychrun, originally drafted 16th overall by the Arizona Coyotes. And they did originally have a very solid pick here in Jake Bean. Now, Jake Bean did fall out of the top 20. That is more on me. I don't know Jake Bean's game like that, especially with shutdown defensemen and more defensive-minded, maybe two-way. You hear a lot about the offensive defensemen, but you rarely hear about like the defensive prowess in the media about these like real hardcore defensive guys. So my apologies, Carolina fans, if he's like Himothy for your team. Maybe he could have been in place of Dylan Dubé, but this is how we have it. Now, back to Jakob Chychrun, who's currently on the Ottawa Senators. He makes $4.6 million until the end of next season, 2024-2025. He had the most goals by a defenseman in 2020-2021 with 18. Spent the first half of his career with the Arizona Coyotes, and he was involved in one trade. Ottawa receives Jakob Chychrun, and Arizona receives a 2023 first-round pick, which turned into number 12, Daniil But, a 2024 second-round pick via Washington, which is now the 49th overall pick, and a 2026 second-round pick. In his career, Chychrun has played 467 games, 76 goals, 140 assists, for 216 points. And a potential lineup on the Carolina Hurricanes would be on the first pair, left side Jakob Chychrun, right side Brent Burns. With the 12th overall pick, the New Jersey Devils, via the Ottawa Senators, select Mikhail Sergachev, originally drafted 9th overall by the Montreal Canadiens, so he didn't fall that far. The original pick here was Michael McLeod. Mikhail is currently on the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he was a big part of those Stanley Cup runs. He's aged 25, makes $8.5 million until 2030-31. He's a two-time Stanley Cup champion, had an incredible year in 2022-23 with 64 points in 79 games. He's a solid top 3 defenseman option. Honestly, you could argue a solid top 2 defenseman, but Tampa does have some really good defensemen, especially on that first pairing with Victor Hedman and Erik Cernak. He's been involved in one trade in his career. Tampa Bay receives Mikhail Sergachev and a 2018 second-round pick, which turned into number 62, Olivier Rodriguez. There we go. We got there. Montreal receives Jonathan Drouin and a 2018 sixth-round pick, which turned into the number 183rd pick, and they selected Cole Kopecky, which I believe I've been hearing some buzz around Kopecky recently, so that's turning into a little bit of an interesting story arc for this entire trade. In 475 games, Sergachev has 48 goals, 209 assists for 257 points. A potential lineup on New Jersey for Mikhail Sergachev would be the second pair defensemen, Mikhail Sergachev and Simon Nemec. Now, this is basically what happened there. The Ottawa Senators and the New Jersey Devils flipped picks here. So the Ottawa Senators, via New Jersey, pick at number 11, forward Patrik Laine, originally drafted 2nd overall by the Winnipeg Jets. And the story around this guy has been absolutely nuts. Just absolutely crazy. There was stories about how he was like a 40 goal scorer, and he was high 30s in his rookie season. He was really the matchup to Matthews leading up to the draft. It was, does Laine go over Matthews? And Matthews went first. I'm sure Toronto fans are ecstatic about that. But Patrik Laine really was like a rival to Matthews, especially in those first 2 years. But then there was news that Laine got addicted to playing video games on the road and he wasn't taking his job serious. I'm sure these are all rumors and not true, but it was just really weird at the time to hear that like this was all happening. He has become very injury prone. He's only played 82 games twice in his career. He's 26 years old, makes $8.7 million until 2025-2026. If it were skill alone, he'd be much higher, but like I said, he's very injury prone. He was touted, like I said, as Matthews' rival. His first season, he had 36 goals, followed that up with 44, giving you actual facts instead of just ranges. His third season, we started to hear rumors about him staying up late and playing Fortnite. That was back when like Fortnite was at its peak. And he's a one-time All-Star. This is something that you'll start to see. I do have accolades and All-Star games in these players' bios, basically, that I made. So this is the first player that we actually get to see that. He's a one-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year finalist, Calder Cup finalist. His future is bright, especially if he can prevent injuries. He could move up the board drastically. I genuinely want to see him move up this board. I want him to prove me wrong. So far it hasn't happened, but hey, this is the present, and I'm talking about the future. Alright. He's been involved in one trade. He was traded from Winnipeg with Jack Roslovic to Columbus for Pierre-Luc Dubois on a 2022 third-round pick, which, as I said before, is number 77, Daniel Zhilkin. In 480 games played, he has 204 goals, 184 assists, for 388 points. And like I said, it's really just the injuries that brought him down this list. It is not skill. He's less than 100 points off from a point per game, which may sound like a lot, but I mean, if this dude played 1,100 NHL games, that's 1,000 points right there. In Ottawa, his potential lineup, and this is crazy, this is why I was excited about some of the potential lineups, would be Brady Tkachuk on the left, Shane Pinto in the middle, and Patrik Laine on the right. That would be an absolutely filthy line. Now we move into the top 10. And in the top 10, the Colorado Avalanche have the first pick at number 10, and I have them selecting Samuel Girard, a defenseman. He was originally drafted 47th overall. I feel like I'm not showing as much love to this mic. 47th overall by the Nashville Predators. The original pick here, like I said earlier, was Tyson Jost, and his current team is the Colorado Avalanche. Now, he's 26 years old, makes $5 million until 2026-27, and while he's not the best defenseman ever, he is a solid third option, much like Mikhail Sergachev. He's playing on the second pair on a team that seems like the perfect fit for him. He's like the perfect he's the perfect third guy when you just want like a lot of offense and a good amount of defense, but I wouldn't consider him like a two-way defender. I certainly wouldn't call him like a defensive defenseman. I guess there's an argument for a two-way, but I do know of him a little more from his offensive game. Alright, well, Colorado, who he's currently playing for, interestingly enough, takes him in this draft. It really was the best option. He was involved in one three-way trade. Part one of that trade was Colorado receives Samuel Girard, Vladislav Kamenev, and a 2018 second-round pick, which turned into the 58th pick, Philip Hollander. Part 2 of the trade, Colorado receives Andrew Hammond, the Hamburglar, if you know you know, Shane Bowers, a 2019 first-round pick, which turned into number 4, Bowen Byram, who they recently traded to Buffalo for Casey Middlestat. As a Buffalo fan, I'm very excited for Bowen Byram. As a Casey Middlestat fan, I'm glad he has a chance to win a cup in the near-term future. And that's why some of my Stanley Cup picks in another video will make a little more sense. Alright. Part 1 I didn't finish. Nashville received Kyle Turris for the Sam Girard Kamenev in the 2018 second. Part 2, there was Andrew Hammond, Shane Bowers, a first-round pick in Bowen Byram, a 2019 third-round pick, which turned into the 63rd Matthew Steinberg, and Ottawa receives in that trade Matt Duchene, who is now 2 teams removed. He was traded to Nashville, and then he went to the Dallas Stars. So I'm sure they would have loved Bowen Byram instead. Now, his potential lineup in Colorado is literally his line in real life. Second pairing, Samuel Girard on the left, Josh Manson on the right. We enter top 9 territory. Little bit of ASMR between your NHL content. We have Montreal selecting number 9, and I have them taking forward Brandon Hagel, originally drafted 159th by the Buffalo Sabres, and that hurts to say so much. But originally in this spot was Mikhail Sergachev. Brandon Hagel, much like Sergachev, currently plays for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's age 25, makes $6.5 until 2031-32. He's an absolute needle mover for Tampa Bay Lightning. In his 2 full seasons with Tampa, he has 56 goals, 83 assists, 139 points. While he doesn't have many accolades, he is an ideal top 6 forward. Even as a left winger, he sometimes is capable of taking over a game. He's been involved in 1 trade in his career. Tampa Bay receives Brandon Hagel, a 2022 4th-round pick, which turned into the 103rd pick, Kenny Connors, and a 2024 4th-round pick, which is slated to be the 99th overall pick. Chicago receives Taylor Radish, Boris Kachuk, a 2024 first-round pick, which is number 19, and it was Oliver Moore, and a 2024 first-round pick. I believe we had a goof there. I believe it was a 2023 first-round draft pick for Oliver Moore, and a 2024 first-rounder that will be number 20 this year. There we go. Perfect. Fixed it up. In his career, he has 293 games played, 90 goals, 117 assists for 207 points. A potential lineup on Montreal would be Brandon Hagel on the left, Alex Newhook in the middle, and Joel Armia on the right. And I just completely did that backwards. But we have fun here. At number 8, the Buffalo Sabres select Jesper Bratt, a forward who currently plays on New Jersey. Originally, Jesper Bratt was picked number 162nd overall by New Jersey, and he has stayed loyal to New Jersey. That's another loyal player. And he was originally picked was Alex Nylander, who we all didn't expect to kind of fizzle out, kind of like he did. I feel like he can have a resurgence, but it just hasn't happened yet. Bratt is 25 years old, makes $7.875 million against the cap until 2030 and 2031 season. 2030 to the 2030-31 season. There we go. His last 3 seasons have been phenomenal. 73 points in 21-22 and 22-23. And this season he had 83 points. He's a solid left wing, right wing combo. He can play either side. That can get you somewhere in the range of 76 to 84 points per year, even with multiple big time injuries to stars like Jack Hughes this year and Nico Hischier. Nico Hischier is getting better with his injury proneness, but he is known to miss some games in a season. His career stats are in 471 games. He has 129 goals, 230 assists, for 359 points. And here is where we get to an interesting idea. I'm going to tell you both of his potential lineups, and I'll explain what I mean in a second. On Buffalo, his potential line would be the second line, Jesper Bratt, with Dylan Cousins down the middle and Jack Quinn on the right. Now, if Tage Thompson is not on the Sabres, because he is selected higher in this redraft, the potential line would still be the second line, with Jesper Bratt, Peyton Krebs up the middle, and Jack Quinn on the right. Next up, we get to Arizona's number 7 pick, who this is going to be a pretty easy one. Clayton Keller, a forward for them, originally drafted 7th overall by Arizona himself. He is age 25. He makes $7.15 million until 2027-28, which is a ridiculous contract because he is such a good player. I have been on the Clayton Keller train for a while. He is a fantastic playmaker. I am really curious what he could do on a team that isn't Arizona. I don't know when we'll get to see that, or if we'll get to see that, and he has remained loyal to Arizona for his entire career to this point. He will be one of the greatest players to start the Utah NHL franchise. He was a point per game in 2022-23 with 86 points in 82 games, and he could definitely be a point per game player with a good team with a solid finisher. Arizona has not had much playoff luck, but in his 9-game playoff career, he has 7 points. His career stats are 520 games, 166 goals, 252 assists for 418 points, and his lineup would be his lineup in real life: Nick Schmaltz on the left, Barrett Hayton in the middle, and Clayton Keller on the right. Now, I'm not going to go too far into this, but I really do believe if the rumors were true, which I'm assuming they're not, and the Leafs were trying to trade Mitch Marner, I feel like Arizona would be the perfect place. I feel like Clayton Keller just has a little more of that dog in him than Marner does, and that's coming from someone that loves Marner. I have his jersey, that's the only Toronto jersey I have, but this is just hypothetical. I feel like Clayton Keller would be a fantastic piece to any trade coming back to Toronto, but I'm really hoping he stays in Toronto. If you're watching this in the future, you either know the outcome of that, or this kind of dates the video to when it is, because it was a big deal for a while there. It kind of died off a little bit now. We're chilling. But at number 6, we have Calgary Flames selecting forward Tage Thompson. Tage Thompson. Originally drafted number 26 by the St. Louis Blues. The original pick here at number 6 was Matthew Tkachuk, but as you can imagine, Matthew Tkachuk has made his way up in this draft. Tage's current team is the Buffalo Sabres. He had a down season this year, but he really picked it up towards the end. People think he was injured. I'm sure there's reports that he was fighting through like an injury he sustained, I believe last summer or early in the season this year. This makes me so happy. He's 26 years old, and he is signed until 2029, 30 season for $7.143 million. He is the tallest player so far in this redraft at 6'6", or 197 centimeters. I know not everybody's from the United States, so I thought it was important to include, if I was going to have his height, some centimeters for everybody to understand. He is on my favorite team, so maybe there's some bias. I'll perfectly admit that. But I think his numbers recently, he's broken out in these past couple seasons. I actually think I'm getting ahead of myself. He had his breakout season in 2021-22, scoring 38 goals, 68 assists in his 5th NHL season. He followed that up with 47 goals and 94 points in 2022-23. This season was a bit of a down year. He played this past season with injury, 29 goals, 56 points in 71 games. So he did actually miss 11 games. That should tell you a little bit about him and what happened. This is one of those trades that when we first saw it, we wondered what the heck was going on. I remember this trade like I remember the Matt Duchene trade, because I was so stunned. I was an NHL fan at the time. I think I started following the Sabres, I believe, the year that this happened. I saw the Ryan O'Reilly Buffalo Sabres play because I was a fan of Jack Eichel. And this trade just blew me away. He's been involved in one trade. Buffalo receives Tage Thompson, Patrick Berglund, Vladimir Sobotka, a 2019 first-round pick, which was the 31st pick overall because St. Louis won the Stanley Cup. Congratulations, by the way. It's 5 years too late, but you guys did it. And a 2021 second-round pick. And with that 31st pick, the Sabres selected Ryan Johnson, who fell well below what anybody thought he would because of attitude issues, I believe was what was happening at the time. And that second-round pick turned out to be number 49, Ben Roger. Now, Ryan Johnson is now in the NHL. He's looking like he's going to be a solid top 4 option. They have a lot of offensive defensemen. In their top 4, they have 3 offensive defensemen, so I'm not 100% sure. To be fair, Rasmus Dahlin has developed into a 2-way defenseman that is just incredibly good, both in his end and the offensive end. In his peak, he was drawing comparisons to Mario Lemieux. He's a big guy, he could get around anyone, he had some speed, he had the goal-scoring prowess. His deking ability, once again, was just crazy. He was doing some wild stuff. He's a one-time All-Star in the 2022-23 season when he had 94 points. And I wrote this down, he can dangle goalies out of their jockstraps. His career stats: 372 games played, 132 goals, 121 assists, 253 points. And on Calgary, that's what we're still here for. Sorry, I geeked out so hard on Tage Thompson. I'm not going to apologize. He's a good player. The potential line would be Jonathan Huberdeau on the left, Nazem Kadri in the middle, and Tage Thompson on the right. Now we get into the final 5. I genuinely do not plan these videos like time-wise, so I hope you're enjoying while we get a little bit of Jersey ASMR. Now, we're in the top 5. These are the elite of the elite. And before we go, I just want to thank you for being here. So, getting right into it, the Vancouvers had the 5th overall pick, and in my redraft, they select Charlie McAvoy, originally drafted number 14th overall by the Boston Bruins. That means he jumped up 9 spots. Originally picked here was Olli Juolevi, who I mentioned all the way at the beginning of the video. McAvoy is currently still with the Boston Bruins. He's 26 years old, makes $9.5 million until 2029-30 season. He's an absolute solid 200-foot player. He is the best defenseman in on one of the best teams in the league, let alone their defensive side. Has always been very, very solid. He has stayed loyal to the Bruins his entire career. He's a one-time All-Star. May not have many accolades, as you'll see. May not have as many accolades as those in the top 4, but hey, he's a incredibly good defenseman. There are significantly less opportunities for defensemen in the awards department. Overall, he's a solid top 2 defenseman. He has a career plus-minus of plus 144. In his career, he's played 454 games. He's had 53 goals, 224 assists for 227 points. And his potential lineup would be second pair, which most people would call that crazy. But you have to remember, in this redraft, they also picked up Filip Hronek, or technically they, in this scenario, have Filip Hronek playing on the right side of Quinn Hughes, so he would be playing second pair minutes with Tyler Myers on his right side. Now, if you want to say Filip Hronek isn't on the first pairing with Quinn Hughes, I'd say maybe try Charlie McAvoy. I think Quinn Hughes would really learn a lot from a 200-foot player like McAvoy, so it would be a good first pairing. I could get behind it. Top 4, we get into some crazy names. We start to get into the accolades, the top tier forwards of the draft. Charlie was unfortunately our last defenseman, but fortunately we get to talk about a lot more accolades, a lot more in-depth about players, starting with the Edmonton Oilers at number 4, taking Alex DeBrincat, a forward who was originally drafted 39th overall by the Chicago Blackhawks. The original pick here was Jesse Puljujarvi. Alex DeBrincat is currently on the Detroit Red Wings. He makes $7.875 million until 2026-27. He is an absolute sharpshooter. He's a sniper. He can get you goals. He's a one-time All-Star. He has had some very good seasons in the NHL, especially for someone that's 5'7", 171 centimeters. Recent history says that he's at least a 67 point per season player. He has played for 3 teams in the last 3 seasons, so that probably doesn't help his recent statistics. And he has been involved in 2 trades, but before we go into that, I want to say that he has been a 40-goal scorer twice in his career, in the 2018-19 season and the 2021-22 season. Now, the 2 trades he was a part of. Trade number 1, Ottawa receives Alex DeBrincat, a 2022 first-round pick, which turned into number 7, Kevin Korchinski. Seriously, Ottawa, stop trading your first-round picks during rebuild. A 2022 second-round pick, which turned into the 39th pick, Paul Ludwinski. And a third-round pick in this year's draft, which will be number 72. In the second trade, Detroit receives Alex DeBrincat. Ottawa receives Dominic Kubalik, Donovan Sabrango, a 2024 fourth-rounder in this year's draft, which will be number 112, and a 2024 first-round pick via Boston, which will be number 25 because they did make it a little deeper in the playoffs. In his career, Alex DeBrincat has played 532 games. He scored 214 goals, 226 assists for 440 points. His potential line on Edmonton is kind of crazy. He would be on the second line with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on the left, Leon Draisaitl in the middle, and Alex DeBrincat on the right side. If you want to put him up with McDavid, if Leon's up with McDavid, there's so much play in Edmonton's top six that it was a little hard to narrow down, but I think that is a solid second line. Don't you agree? And look at me out here, Captain. There was one more defenseman actually in this draft. With a third overall pick, the Columbus Blue Jackets select defenseman Adam Fox, originally drafted 66th overall by the Calgary Flames. The original pick here was Pierre-Luc Dubois, who was earlier in this video. His current team is the New York Rangers. He's age 26, makes $9.5 million against the cap until 2028-29, which, for what he gives, he's like a top 3, top 5 at the lowest defenseman in the NHL, especially on the overall aspect of the game. For a while there, it was like Adam Fox, Cale Makar, and then it would kind of shift, but Cale Makar kind of stood above Adam Fox for a very long time there, until Cale Makar just kind of took over the position of best defenseman. Now, Adam has been in 2 trades in his career to get to his current team, the Rangers. Technically, he forced his way to the Rangers, and I don't dislike him as much as I do with Pierre-Luc Dubois because he did it before his career even started. When he forced his way to the Rangers, he did not have an NHL contract at all. So the first trade, Carolina receives Adam Fox, Michael Furland, and Dougie Hamilton. Trade number 2, Rangers receive Adam Fox, and Carolina receives a 2019 second round pick and a 2020 second round pick. The first second rounder was at number 27. I believe that is meant to be 37. In either case, Carolina receives Mads Sogard, and the 2020 pick turned into Noah Gunnar. Here's where things get crazy in the top 3. The accolades are on another level now. He's a top-tier right-shot defenseman. That's why he's making the big bucks. Righties are in style right now in the NHL, and they're hard to get, especially one as good as this for 2 second-round picks. Alright, he's a one-time Norris Trophy winner, which means best defenseman, and that was 2020-2021. He is a one-time Norris finalist, did not win in 22-23, and in those same years, he was a 2-time All-Star. He is a consistent 70-point threat as a defenseman every single year, and in his career as a defenseman, I continue to say 357 games, 53 goals, 255 assists, 308 points in 357 games. On Columbus, he would be first pairing. On the right side, you'd have Adam Fox. On the left side, you'd have Zach Werenski. And we get to the final 2, the moment we've all been waiting for. The Winnipeg Jets at number 2 select forward Matthew Tkachuk, originally drafted number 6th overall by the Calgary Flames. We've already passed him, and we've already heard a little bit about Tkachuk. But originally, the pick here was Patrick Laine, who we heard about earlier, and Tkachuk is now on the Florida Panthers, competing for a Stanley Cup. He's 26 years old and the older brother of Ottawa Senators Brady Tkachuk and son of former heavyweight Keith Kachuk. He makes $9.5 million until 2029-30. That is an incredible contract for what he brings to the table. He is not afraid to beat you down, but also being on most scoring chances the very next play. That is just his game. That is kind of Brady's game too. The one trade he has been a part of was a trade from Calgary to Florida. The Panthers received Matthew Tkachuk. The Flames received Jonathan Huberdeau, who has had his name appear a couple times in this video now, even if one was by accident, Mackenzie Weegar, Cole Schmidt, and a 2025 first rounder. The trade looked even, but is now heavily favoring Florida, because Jonathan Huberdeau just, that first season, it was not it in Calgary. He had a better season this season, but that first year wasn't it. He's a two-time All-Star and a 2022-2023 Hart Trophy finalist, which is the MVP trophy for the NHL. His career stats, he's played 590 games, 218 goals, 361 assists for 579 points. The potential line fit here would be first line, obviously. On Winnipeg, it would be Nikolai Ehlers on the left, Mark Scheifele in the middle, and Matthew Tkachuk on the right side. In number 1 overall, drum roll please, Toronto Maple Leafs. You'd never figure. Select Auston Matthews, originally drafted first overall by the Toronto Maple Leafs. He currently plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's currently 26. Now we get into my less favorite parts, which is his cap. But before that, let's have some fun. This year he had a career high of 69 goals. Nice. Which the last time that was done was in 95-96 season by Mario Lemieux. If he would have hit 70, it would have went back to, I believe, 91-92. And it was either Lemieux that year or Yager. I think it was Yager that did it. This was his second 100-point season. He had 107 points this year. He signed a $13.25 million contract that kicks in next season, running until 2027-28. I'm not a big fan. I don't think... My whole ideals on the cap are for a completely other video, because I could spend 30 minutes just rambling about the freaking cap. But 13.25, you're the highest paid player in the NHL. Your name's not Connor McDavid. Your name's not Nathan McKinnon. You are the third best player in the league. You're the best goal scorer by far. But we're just not in a league worth 13.25 on a team with an $11 million player, an $11 million player, and dang near an $11 million player where that works. Not talking about the fifth, which is over $7 million with Morgan Riley. That is my biggest woe with Toronto, is they basically pay the Toronto tax. They just pay more for players. I don't think it's... I digress. He's a future first ballot Hall of Fame. Let's get back into the positives. He potentially can pass Gretzky's 892 goals, barring injury and longevity. Alex Ovechkin is most likely going to beat Gretzky's 892, but it's going to be a pretty big deal even when Auston Matthews passes it, assuming he stays healthy and plays long enough. He's on a better pace than Ovi was at this point in his career, but not every player can play 20 seasons in the NHL, quite like Ovi did. And to keep your goal-scoring prowess up that high the entire time, it's absolutely crazy. He's a 7-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year, Calder Trophy in 2016-17, 3-time Lady Byng finalist, which is for gentlemanly conduct, and that was in 2019-2020, 2020-21, and this season 2023-24. He's a 3-time Maurice Richard winner, which means he has had the most goals in the NHL in a single season 3 times, and that was in 2020-21 with 41 goals in 52 games, 2021-22 with 60 goals in 73 games, and 23-24 this current season, 69 goals in 81 games played. He's a one-time Hart Trophy winner. That's MVP if you have forgotten. That was in the 2021-22 season. He's a 2-time Hart finalist, which means he did not win in 2019-2020 and 2020-21. He's a one-time Ted Lindsay winner, which is the MVP voted by players, and that was also 21-22. He's a one-time now Selke finalist, which means he was one of the league's top defensive forwards, and that was this current season. So if he turns his game into a 200-foot game like Crosby did, but he has the goal-scoring prowess like Gretzky or like Ovechkin, that's kind of nuts. Honestly, just add those two players together and you get Gretzky, Austin Matthews, and Sidney Crosby, or Alex Ovechkin and Crosby. I digress there. Career stats: 562 games played, 368 goals, 281 assists for 649 points. That is the one and only player on here who is above a point a game at this point in their career. His potential line is obviously his current line, which is Tyler Bertuzzi, Austin Matthews in the middle, and Max Domi on the right. Now, I have no idea how long this has been, but I want to thank you so much for watching, for indulging my NHL geek session, my rambling. I hope you enjoyed the ASMR portions too. And I just want to ask you to, if you like this video, hit like. It helps way more than you could expect, way more than I ever could have expected. And if you really liked it and you want to see more content like this is where you get a bit of a spoiler for people that stay this far and didn't stop right after I said Austin Matthews. I will be doing all of the redrafts back to the 2003 season. It is my goal, it is something I want to do, and I've been having a lot of fun doing these redrafts. So if you'd like that, hit subscribe. And otherwise, I want to thank you so much for being here and just wish you the best rest of your day.